Okay, so today I'm going to demonstrate a fall pumpkin with some fall flowers and leaves and foliage on top. My paper is a 6 by 9, and I did a 1/2 inch border all the way around. I like borders. I think it kind of classes up and finishes off the artwork nicely, so I usually do a bit of a border. So I'm going to start off with a very, very light sketch, getting in the basic shapes and sizes of what I want going here. So I'm doing kind of a shorter, squatty pumpkin, I think, because I want room on top for the foliage. And we do this very, very lightly so that we can make adjustments, hide our lines as we change it, or add detail or whatever. So I do it very, very light. You can barely see it. I'm going to kind of put in some petals, and some of them are not straight out. They're kind of curving. Just going to go this way a little bit and do a few this way. Just kind of creating this little sunflower. Okay, so it gives us our little sunflower, or our big sunflower, which is kind of our main thing. And then I want to have a couple pieces of wheat coming up, and I usually do wheat by alternating ovals. That's how I'll designate in my wheat, and I'll just do it really light, really subtle. And I'm gonna do 2 stalks. I think we want to keep this one, make this a little bit taller. And then we'll bring another one kind of this way. Okay, so I also want to have like grass. Let's see here. Sort of twisting over itself, which again I'll kind of fix that as we go. So, and then I want to have like little berry sprig things. And when I do that, I kind of create the little bunches. And then when I'm just sort of saving their spot right now. When I start to kind of develop these, I will create like half berries and all kinds of, make it look a little more realistic rather than always a full berry. And then we'll have little berry sprigs sticking out over here. Okay, so now I want a leaf. Like an oak leaf. make some adjustments here. Turn this into a little longer section. Kind of designate in where my little pumpkin ridges were going to be. And then, so on this side, I want to add in like a little pine cone. So I kind of start putting in sort of spiraled triangles. And I let them get a little bit bigger as I go. And as I'm doing, when I start to kind of develop them, they will start to get sort of further and further apart. They kind of are going back behind the flower now. And now they're starting to sort of spike at the end, but kind of go down. And again, as I develop these, they'll be different. I'll start to put more space in between them, but a little bit of the back end of a pine cone kind of tucked behind there. I think I'm going to add a little bit more leaf kind of sticking up. This one I kind of made bend around behind, but I think here I'm going to have this leaf kind of sticking up. And then we'll add some more berry cluster here. So we have some wheat, we have some grasses, some berries, a couple little berry sprigs here, some leaves, and a sunflower, and our pumpkin. That's our outline. Now I can kind of start going in and sort of developing this out, shading it little by little. I'm going to start with putting in some of the leaf lines. Got some lines kind of already going through here from earlier sketch that we'll have to try to make disappear. That'll be not too hard. I'm just going to put in a really light shading in the leaves. I've kind of got a bit of a mess happening with my leaf here, so I'm going to try and make some corrections as I'm going along. Try to blend some of those out. So I'm just spending a little time here blending away some of the lines that I didn't want. I don't typically like to sort of outline my shapes like I did here, but because I kind of had a lot of jumbledness, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to make a darker leaf than I had originally intended. Well, that's okay. It happens. Sometimes I really like to come in with my blending tool, even with ink. I could just kind of smooth some things out nicer than I can just with my hand, right? So when I am coming in and filling in these areas, I am darkening along the edge of the petals because I want it to be dark on the leaf side because the leaf is underneath the petal. So I don't want the petal to look like this outlined petal, but I will define the edges of my petal by making it a little bit darker on the leaf underneath the petal. So I kind of like the dark to fade off of those vein lines and be a little bit lighter in the middle. And some of these areas aren't quite like that, but the way my plan here that I'm gonna do to hide some of my little extra lines, I'm going to create my base darker, and then I can go through and I can darken the veins I want to keep and fade off of them a little bit more. And again, defining my petals by creating a little bit darker on the leaf underneath the petal, like a shadow, fading it out from there. Keep my pen nice and slanted to get these soft lines. Very little pressure. Takes some practice to kind of get that soft hand. Okay, so I can come through and I'll darken this up even more and then kind of fade off of it a little. Kind of do that on all sides, all the sections. It's kind of a subtle shift, but I think it makes a good difference. I think it's worth the extra effort. And then of course I'm going to fade out from my petals as well. And when I start to do that gradient change, as I come off from it, I go lighter and lighter and lighter as I come out. And it makes a nice subtle shift instead of this sudden stop. I'm gonna try and make this leaf just a little bit lighter. Because, you know, they would be potentially could be different colors, right? Like green or yellow. So again, around the petals, we're still gonna darken maybe just a little bit less. And from the edges or our veins, we're going to fade out still. Just a little bit less. Okay, so I'm gonna stop with the leaves at the moment. So a lot of times when I am developing something, I will just do the main part of it and then kind of move on. And at the end, I can go through and fine tune things. So I'll do that often. So I'll kind of clean up this little pumpkin edge here. This is kind of a curve. You know, it curves in, so I want the curve in front to be a little bit lighter, so I'll create the shadow kind of behind it and fade that out. And again, I'm gonna try to just do kind of a base layer. And I'm doing very sort of fuzzy, faint lines. And then I'm going to build up layers of those right here along the crevice of this pumpkin and fade that out into a gradient shift out from there. Okay, so that's like the base of my shadow for for the crevice here. And then as it's rounding down underneath, it would get darker, so the bottom would be a little bit darker, so I could kind of build my shades down here. And again, a nice little gradient change out. Little flick lines help with that. You want the curve of your line to match your image you're working on. Help it. Have your curve help you in your design. Your pencils or your pen strokes kind of help you. Take your time. This is a slower process. It shouldn't be quick. We start to get shadows of our pumpkin here. And again, I'm going to sort of define that. Crevice there, we'll define that crevice. I'm going to turn this so I can make it a little easier to follow that curve of my pumpkin. And then I can kind of darken the deepest part of the crevice here. And again, start to try to fade it out from there. Nice little gradient shift. Subtle and smooth. And then my flick lines up from the bottom of my pumpkin. Soft, fuzzy. Then I'll kind of come around and fill in the gaps here a little bit with a very soft hand. Very, very soft hand. And down to our last little piece of our pumpkin here. Well, we still have the middle, so I lied. Not the last piece. I tend to like to leave the center for last. I don't know why, just personal preference. So again, my leaf is going to be on top of the pumpkin. So at some point down the road in the developing of this image, I will start to create shadowing behind the leaves as well. But I'm not quite to that point yet, but we will be doing that. Again, I can darken where I want to really define that edge, but fade out from it. It's not like a line or an outline, it's a shadow. And Sometimes I'll put in my shadow under my, like, for example, under the leaf, like as I go, but sometimes I want to just develop the item as though it doesn't have a shadow and then add the shadow after. Sometimes that's just a little bit easier. So this side is a little bit darker than my other side, which is fine. I'll just darken this side a little bit. I want to make this side just a touch rounder right through here so I can add that in. Kind of define that edge a little. Sometimes if my lines of something are starting to kind of get lost, I'll darken them just a little bit to not lose the spot. Deepen my shadow a little here, kind of fade out from it again. Because a lot of times on these little shadow spots, I'll go over them multiple times. I kind of move around my pictures quite a bit. And even when I think or say like, okay, I'm done here, I'm gonna move on, I'm not really done. I will almost always go back over spots multiple times. Kind of get them more evened out, smoother transition, whatever the case might be. Sometimes, you know, my pen work can take hours, and sometimes I will stop and then the next day come back and be like, oh, you know, I want to change this or that, darken this, or, you know, smooth that out, blend that more. Sometimes it will last into the next day. Okay, now we'll shade up our center piece here. And again, I'm gonna have it be darker at the bottom, but it will be a little bit lighter up through here because it is the closest to the front and rounded out. So it's going to receive quite a bit of light. And I do like to rotate my paper and make it easier for me to get my strokes nice. So when I'm shading, I will move the paper around until it is more comfortable for my hand rather than try to twist my hand around. Like it when I can get my edges nice and soft. And of course, or my ink blended softly. And then of course up underneath my flowers here is going to be a little bit darker. And a lot of times I go through and I get the basic, get most of the blending and the most of the layers and the values that I want put in. And then at the end, I kind of go through and deepen some spots. So I don't get super like worried about getting it perfect at the first go around or the first time coming through and shading it. Because again, I'll go through and continuously increase and add and deepen shadows. And I'm going to come through and do some flick lines from the bottom up, kind of helping to do that nice gradient transition up through here. And I want to, if I'm coming up and touching another item in the drawing, it's going to leave sort of an edge or white areas in here. So if I bring lines out from it, touching that line and coming out, it'll clean that up and darken it up along the edge of the leaf or the transition and make a sharper, cleaner transition. So those are kind of important aspects of making the art look sharp. And then, I'm going to come in and just sort of deepen that shadow right through here. Fade it out a little bit. Same on this side, just kind of start deepening my shadows a little bit, smoothing my transitions. Anywhere where I start to kind of sort of lose that edge, I can just darken just a touch, make it pop back out a little bit. I'm going to come through and continue to darken up my face here. And just like really soft and fuzzy and light, and I can smooth out transitions quite a lot with keeping my ink soft, like on the edge of the ball point, so it's coming out soft and fuzzy. Okay, and then I'm going to come along the edge of my leaves and just kind of darken up that area a little bit because it would be shadowed. But again, very soft and fuzzy and not so dark that it's going to make that leaf fade and go away. If I'm having that happen, I can darken up the edge. just a touch. I'm gonna come around the whole leaf and just add a little bit of softly darken the edge around the leaf. Working at subtly smoothing out my transitions here. Kind of go around this leaf and do the same. Increase the value just right around the edge of the leaf. Again, it's very gradient change as it comes out. Like you want to fade it out. You don't just want it to be a sudden shift in shaded color. And then I'm going to just slightly darken up my edges of my leaf because I don't want it to sort of disappear into my pumpkin. And a lot of times the way I kind of try to look at it is like the edges shadowing. So I'll soften the outside edge of it so it doesn't look like I just increased the outline of it and it's like outlined, because that's not really what we want. Kind of darken up my shadows here real good. Deepen them a bit. All right, and that kind of finishes up my pumpkin here a bit. So the next thing, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna start to just darken up on my pine cone here. I want the sort of insides of the pine cone. They're not leaves, but you know, little pieces. We want to darken those just a touch so that it looks like they're starting to splay open, right? So I just go in and very lightly start to add a little bit on the inside pieces of each of the little triangular pieces. Add some darkening. And again, I want it to be a little bit soft and smooth. Transition out a little bit. And as I do this, I start to sort of lose the definition a little bit, which we don't want that. So I'll go back and I'll darken and redefine some of these shapes. And I'm gonna come in with my blender and just kind of go through and give it a little bit of a touch here in each one, just right where I shaded. And then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to sort of redefine some of these edges I started to lose. And that kind of deepens some of these shadows. And I'm just going to soften a few again a little bit and drag that ink out towards the tip of some of these little pine cone leafy things, whatever you call them. I don't know what you call them. All right, there we go. Okay, so next I'm going to come to these little balls that we have going here. And I have these petals here. I'm trying to redefine those because I don't want to go over them. So each of these little balls, I will kind of come in and start to do the circle on the outside and then bring it in lighter as I come. And the ones I have that I drew in or sketched in first, these are all of our whole ones that we can see the whole, pretty much the whole circle. And again, I'll just kind of come in and okay, then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna add in kind of little half ones and deepen, just deepen shadows around. Because not every single one of the little balls would be a whole one, right? Some of them are gonna be partials. And as I put some of these partial ones in, I'll come in and add a little bit of the blending. I think I want to add a few more little pieces here. Maybe one more. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Again, I can deepen shadows where I want it deepened. And then I have more on the side, a whole bunch more, so I'll probably come over and start working on these. Added in some of my half ones. I think I want to and then again I'll come in and just sort of touch the middles here, soften and blend a little. And then deepen some of these deeper shadows. And some partials here. Kind of finish out our some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller. and soften them all up with my little blending tool. Come through and sort of deepen up some of these shadows again. Kind of darken that petal a little because all those are behind my petal, so I want to make sure I don't sort of lose that. I'll have to redefine that petal as we're going along. Again, I do multiple circles and then kind of lift my pen and get just a little bit of light ink in the middle. And then add in my partials here. Not all of them are going to be perfectly round. Come through and soften with my blending. And then come in and start deepening up the very interior shadows in between the little balls here. Add in my little partial ones here. Deepen my shadows. Okay. I'm gonna come in and give the center of my sunflower here a layer. This center is gonna get built up and built up with multiple layers of volume. So I'm just gonna start with my first couple here and add some layers here. Some texture. And then I'm going to start to deepen the outside edge and give it a gradient change into the center. And again, I start very light. Always start very light. Because I can always darken, but I cannot lighten it back up. Sort of my first layer. Okay, so let's I'm just gonna kind of define my petals here because I'm gonna start doing this wheat. And the wheat is similar to the little balls that we created, except for they're ovals. And they're alternating ovals. And they're kind of coming off of a center stalk. But I will darken them with multiple, going over the oval multiple times. Then again, come in with my little blending tool and slightly soften. And when I do that, I'm going with the oval, like out from the center, out on each oval. Okay. Then I'm going to come in through the middle, sort of darken up the stalk a little bit. We also need an oval right up here, a pointing ending oval here. Forgot to put that one in. Okay, and then we're going to have the little tapered grass pieces. I don't know what you call them. They come off the end of the little wheat grains here. And it kind of gives it that feel of a stalk of wheat. So I'm going to come in and do this other one. And when I'm doing drawing in arrangements or really anything, but if I'm just gonna have two, then I will usually make one taller than the other. And then I like sort of groups of 3. So like these 2 are kind of together and these 2 are kind of these 2. So that's kind of 3. You have 1, 2, or 3. So 2, 2, there's 3 in this group and 2 in this group and 2 in this group, 1. And then up here, my grass, I actually do have 6 blades. Probably would look nicer with 5. I don't know, but when I drew this in, I just filled it in until I was happy. So with that one, I didn't really follow that design principle of odds unless it's 2. So just sort of soften these, giving it that outward brush, and then darken through the middle like it's got a center stalk. And then we're gonna add our little wheat hairs. And that gives us our look of little wheat stalks. All right, so on our grasses back here, again, I am gonna just start to darken our petals just a touch through there so that I don't lose my petal edges as I start darkening my grass. But I'm gonna start with grasses farther back because they're gonna be shadowed a little bit darker. Okay, so I'm really wanting to kind of define out the lines a little bit more and create some texture lines up through there, okay? I want the grass to stay relatively light, so very light shading. And then sort of have texture lines. I don't know if you ever see like the little grasses that are in floral arrangement sometimes, and they're kind of stripy. That's kind of what I'm going for. So again, this piece, it's going to be a little darker down through here. So I have this piece of grass twisting right here. So it'll be a little bit darker underneath than it would be on top. And I'll start to slowly, as I put the ones in the front on and they start to look a little bit dark and the back starts to match them a little, I'll start to sort of darken that back one a little bit to make it stand out from it. My lines are long and match the grass. Length. And then this one, again, it's gonna fold over right here. And it's gonna be much lighter on top than underneath. Okay, so I kind of have them, each of them in, and again, I'll kind of come through and make sure that my edges are clean and that the shadows I have in are pushing the leaf either back or forward. And I do that with varying degrees of value. And so when I'm doing this, I kind of do it like the least amount of value I can to get the desired effect for each one. Because once I start developing my petals, then I might need to darken. And so I want to darken as little as I need to in the beginning, so I have room to darken more should I need to do that. And I want to widen this one out because I wasn't super happy with that one. Okay. So I'm gonna pause there and kind of come in and start doing my petals a little bit. Now the petals, these petals would be kind of a yellow, which is fairly a light color. So I am not going to shade a ton on my petals, but I do want to create some shadowing to define each petal out from each other without it really looking, again, like I've outlined these petals. So I'm giving the edges a little bit of shading and texture. And I kind of want to make my texture lines sort of match the flow of the petal also. So if the petal's kind of got a weird, like a curve to it or something, then I would want to use my pen strokes to match that and help give that feel. So as I go along each petal, and develop it, I start to define those edges just a little bit more. And I'm going to do that as I work through the petals so I don't like lose them or forget where they're supposed to be, that kind of thing. And I'll just continue to work my way around this flower. glop. Got a little ink clod there, plop, whatever, glob. And I'm not loving that, but it's there, so. And I don't like how I drew these petals right through here. I'm gonna change them up a little bit. So again, as I define that edge, I kind of fade that out into the leaf and make sure that the leaf is nice and filled in behind the petal. It just gives it more of a pushing the petal forward rather than outlining the petal, you know. So here's a petal, like if I just add the texture, okay? And then I can kind of come in and define that edge and fade that edge out into the pumpkin a little bit. And you can kind of see the difference between the two sides there. And I can come in and do the same, kind of define this edge and then soften that edge out into the pumpkin and the leaf. And it kind of pops that leaf forward from the pumpkin then. And I'll do the same kind of along here. I'll kind of just darken this edge of this forward leaf and fade it out into the leaf behind it. So instead of looking like I outlined this petal, I now look like there's a petal forward of that leaf, or of that other petal behind it. And it's very subtle. I often get people just doing them just far too much, too quick to try to define the lines, and then it doesn't take much to just darken that edge a little bit. we spin that all the way back around. So now I've got the majority of my flower kind of shaded. I do want to come in and shade in the center. I want my center of sunflowers is darker, right? So I'm gonna come around and just start darkening from the edge towards the middle. For me, I find getting your strokes round with the shape of the center to be one of the harder aspects of shading with a pen. Once I have a good base, if I can do it really, really soft, I can kind of come in. Start to do some rounding here. But again, I'm going to want to deepen that outside edge. This petal kind of folds up into this center here. And again, I can come through now as I'm done, and I can just start to deepen some spots, smooth out some spots. Anywhere I feel like it's kind of been missed a little. These little grasses I want to be a little bit more even in their values a bit. So I'm gonna start to darken up a few of the fore ones a bit. So they can match up with the back ones just a touch more. Okay, and then I kind of want this to have a base here that's not just floating. So that's the last bit I'll do, is come in and give it a bit of a ground. Again, I always like to start lightly. And then start to darken just underneath the pumpkin. And I just kind of keep increasing up underneath the pumpkin here. I try to keep my lines very straight and try not to get these little sort of loops. And I'm not going to bring it super dark all the way out to the edge of this line or of my box here. I will try to get it pretty dark up underneath, just right up underneath the pumpkin, because it's the most shadowed through there. But I want it to kind of come out and be a little more interesting and not all the way to the edge. At least not everywhere. I mean, it is going all the way to the edge, but I want it to be lighter in areas. And I will come out from that box a little and sort of what I call backfill, because it kind of cleans up my edge. And then I can come in and I can sort of define the very edge of my pumpkin a little bit more. Create deeper shadows, and it'll come out from both sides of that. It'll fade out from that. I do not want to come outside of my frame here, and I just did right there, and that doesn't make me very happy. I'm going to try to clean up my edge a little bit with very, very light fuzzy shading. Barely there. Okay. So there's my pumpkin.